Yep, fully convinced. Creativity is an addiction. It is that one thing that we need from everybody else, and they need it from us, and when we don't show up, it affects them as well. Unplugged because we will always say yes to creativity. Totally Uncut because we all make mistakes. So turn it into a tool. This is Arroe Unplugged.
Hey, it's Arroe, and this is Defrag. Defrag is something that I do in so many ways and shapes. I keep a defrag journal where I ask questions and I question answers. I have to be truthful because the one that's asking questions and questioning answers will call my ass out in a heartbeat. That person knows a fake because it's living inside of me. And when you learn to put trust in those moments, when you're questioning and then questioning even more, and when an answer comes up and it too is questioned, you got to find out what the hell's going on, because somebody else is going to spot your weakness if they haven't already done so. So that's why you have to defrag. I defrag in a journal every day. I've been doing that since November of 2017, and we get this opportunity to defrag while we're taking a transition walk. A transition walk, we all go through transitions. It's time to learn from them. But you know what? Nobody in your life told you or showed you how to move through a transition. And then one day, here's this freak on a microphone that says, have you taken a transition walk yet? What are you hearing while you're out there? Question, and then question the answers. Today's defrag is going to put a lot of attention on what is moving through you. And because you don't take notes, they're forgotten very easily. We train ourselves to forget those great moments. Oh, I remember. Yeah. When I get home, I'll do that. And then when you get home, because things changed at a particular traffic light, you no longer remember. And then maybe one day or late at night, you go, why didn't I do it? Because you didn't write it down. My wife and I, we keep a journal that is for television watching. We're binge watchers. That's what the lockdown did for us. We keep a written journal of every single show that we're watching because it's almost impossible to keep up to date with every episode as well as season. You forget. You forget because you get drawn into another area. But we keep that journal very fresh because we do love the shows that we're binge watching and we want to go back to them. But we realize that your memory really isn't that long. It's kind of like the NFL, not for long. It's not every day that I am shown the way by the written word of another person. Julia Cameron of The Artist Way was probably one of the very first creative minds that spoke directly into the way I think, the way I bring words forward, the way that I act and react, and the way that I hurt. And then today, this guest preacher, Pastor Franklin, his whole entire message is based on one thing. Writers. Yeah, writers. Scribes. These people that view life and then write about it. Because the kings and the rulers of those old days, they didn't want to hear about it. They would take their knives out and cut out what they didn't like. But yet the scribes and the writers took the time to write it out. I wrote something last night on Facebook that I instantly took down this morning because my personality had changed. And it was about how Walmart is starting to look into this banana program. The banana program, when it comes to stealing, is that someone will lay the bananas on the checkout scan, and then they will pretend to put that $60 steak over the scanner. They're losing a lot of money. There's a lot of people losing money. And I wanted to talk about that. And the reason why I wanted to talk about it was so that real people who didn't go to self-checkout understood where millions of dollars are being lost. It's a business world, and you wonder why food prices are so high. The cost of theft is just unbelievable. So, as a writer, as somebody who watches life and scribes it, I put it on Facebook. I took it down because I don't want to be looked upon as being a curmudgeon. But then a listener from my days of terrestrial radio took the time to say, I love the way that he tells it the way that he is. He's unafraid. Writing That's what we're defragging today. Not about why I write and why I want you to write. We're going to talk about why aren't you writing? You're observing the same exact life that I am. You're observing the same headlines. You are in full view of winning teams, losing teams, the dream to be a billionaire because of a Powerball lottery. You're seeing it too, but you're not writing it. And I would love to understand what the block is. So let's ask the questions and question the answers. What is your place? We're all called to be writers. Because here's what's happening. You're going to talk about the headlines, but in the process of sharing the stories, you're going to turn it around. And you're going to be no different than the kings of those days of the Bible, where you've taken out your knife and you've cut the things out that you don't like. Now, this is not a guilt trip. I'm just telling you the way that it is. What you need to be doing is documenting the emotion as it is happening so that when you do share the story, it's accurate and it's not an assumption. So the question is, what is keeping you? Is it really judgment? Is it really about time that you don't think you have? And yet I have people that tell me, I play video games all day. Why don't you? Well, it's not that I don't have time. I just feel like my creative energy is more important than putting a different kind of energy in somebody else's creativity. Ask the questions. Question the answers. The stories that you're sharing, the experiences that you're going through. What is it about you that is keeping you from telling the truth? And how often do you go back to a news story and you can't find it? It was there. That's when I usually say, oh crap, it was clickbait. I was spreading a story that didn't exist. I'd like to read you something that this Pastor Franklin read from. It was Psalms 45:1. The words are, my heart is indicting a good matter. I speak of these things which I have made touching the king. My tongue is the pen of a ready writer. That really blew me away. It blew me away in the way that I've been a daily writer since July of 1994. I don't know why. I've questioned it 10 million times. In fact, in my defrag journal this morning, I even questioned it. Why? Why? And that's when the stronger side basically put his head above ground and said, will there ever come a day when you stop asking why and you just do it because you know you can? That's a pretty important step forward. So why wouldn't I want to share something like that with you? There's a lot of know-it-alls in the world. But how many people who think they're know-it-alls because they're hooked up with Google.com share their way of being great leaders by way of experience? Not assumed experience, but physical experience because they wrote it down and they got it right. I am not a fan of modern day CNN, Fox News, and other opinionated driven shows. Not a fan. Because they go out and find these people that are going to say exactly what the network wants them to say. Not a fan because I don't agree with it. Because they try to make it sound like that their word is the written word. Their opinion is how they're going to change the way that people move through their everyday life. That's the thing about it. We're allowing other people's opinions to control everything that you're doing. And then you might be sitting there right now going, well, dude, aren't you sharing your opinion right now? Because you're asking me why am I not a writer? And maybe, I'm telling people that I've got an assumption here that this is what the story was about. I mean, seriously. You can look at it as that, or you can look at it as a reflection in the mirror. For you to look on the inside of your eyes and say, who am I really? Ask the questions. Question the answers. Who are you really? And when you start building that foundation of getting a little bit stronger and a little bit stronger, what happens is that you start to write things down. You start to remember how things actually were. Because you begin to understand that when you kind of bend something, it too affects another person's life. But you know inside your heart that you bent the story. Not an opinion. I've done it. I'm just as guilty. And then one day you wake up and you go, hey, I got to start telling the real thing, the real deal. I'm going to start writing. And if people don't like my writing, I'm okay. Because writing is something that we all do, but we choose not to. Ask the questions, question the answers. Who are you? I'm Arroe, and that's Defrag.